Joining me is Randy Durband. He's the CEO of the Global Sustainable Tourism Council. Thanks very much for your time, Randy. Now, in your view, what does sustainable tourism look like?
Well, sustainable tourism makes travel, the ability to travel last forever, that we cover the environmental elements of tourism, but we look at the social impacts and cultural heritage impacts as well. It's a very broad view that we take.
So what are the challenges and costs involved in implementing sustainable measures for the tourism sector, and how prohibitive is it, particularly for smaller businesses in less developed countries, for example?
Well, I think the main issues are lack of awareness. You mentioned cost. Cost to conversion for buildings and for business process have come down tremendously in recent years because of enhanced technology. And I think that many businesses have not noticed and looked carefully at what those lowered costs are. I think just a general lack of awareness about what it truly is, the breadth of it, what we need to do. Also not reading the travelers. In your Vancouver piece just now, they mentioned that the travelers are looking for it. Many people in the travel industry are missing that because travelers tend to focus on price at time of booking, but they're increasingly looking for sustainable practices.
So which cities would you say, or countries even, are getting it right, getting serious about sustainable tourism, and what success stories have you heard in terms of how this investment in the development of sustainable tourism is impacting their economies?
Yeah, well, few have gotten it right in the long term because mostly cities and countries just promoted tourism and didn't plan and manage for it. But we're seeing tremendous changes in that regard in recent years. Some that come to mind: Singapore is doing great things. We're working with them in a very holistic way. They're subsidizing hotels to get sustainably certified. The country of Norway has a very systematic program of helping their cities and destinations with guidance on how to properly plan and develop. An example of a good policy, I would say, Amsterdam has riverboats come into the city center, and they now require that the riverboats get sustainably certified in order to use the port in the city center. Otherwise, they have to discharge the passengers outside the city. So it's some very clever things underway. The European Union has portside electrification requirements for ships, the deadline of 2030, a lot of things like that. And then one other thing I would say is that technology changed so quickly that some things like home sharing and car riding and so forth disrupted old systems, and municipalities were a bit slow to respond, but many have now responded, and they now have home sharing regulations and so forth. And so there's more emphasis on avoiding crowded spots at iconic places and city centers and so forth. So we're seeing good movement globally, but it's rather late, and it's a bit spotty. In some places they're just not doing much at all, but I gave you some of the better examples.
So when people are looking to take a trip or have a holiday, what are some of the basic ways they can travel more sustainably?
Well, they can take a train or a bus to get there if possible. And in terms of flights or aviation fuel is not yet sustainable. And until it gets sustainable, it's a bit of the Achilles heel for travel. So, we don't like to say you shouldn't fly, but you should fly perhaps for longer trips and amortize that carbon that you burn, and then walk and use public transport and buses and, more efficient vehicles as much as possible. And at time of booking, don't just fixate purely on price. Look beyond and think about the suppliers. Skyscanner now has marks of flights that are a little bit greener. Booking.com has worked with us to make indication of hotels that are a bit greener. And travelers can also really look for, just start asking questions and put it on satisfaction surveys that, your feelings about it.
Really interesting to get your insight there. Thanks very much for your time. Randy Durband there, CEO of Global Sustainable Tourism Council.